The champagne glass shattered against the Italian marble, and Vanita Douglas didn't flinch. 3 months ago she would have been the one throwing it. 3 months ago she'd been wearing Gucci instead of scrubbing floors in a maid's uniform that reeked of industrial bleach and humiliation. "Did I say you could stop working?" Yunari's voice sliced through the Lakeshore Drive penthouse like a blade wrapped in honey. She stood at the center of the ballroom in a blood-red gown that probably cost more than most people made in a year, her delicate hand still extended from the throw. Around her, Chicago's criminal royalty pretended not to notice another display of casual cruelty from the woman they all feared. Vanita kept her eyes down, her natural curls pulled back so tight her scalp ached, and moved to clean the mess. The glass had exploded across designer shoes and custom suits, but no one complained. No one dared. This was the game now. 3 months since her father had thrown her out of the Douglas mansion with nothing but the clothes on her back. 3 months since she'd screamed the truth about his dirty money and blood-stained empire in front of his business partners, thinking righteousness would protect her. 3 months since she'd realized her baby sister Jasmine's accidental overdose at 20 years old might not have been an accident at all. She'd taken this job, the most degrading position she could find, for one reason: intelligence. Her father did business with Lee Junzio, the tattooed Korean boss who controlled half of Chicago's underground through a network of legitimate fronts and illegal operations. If anyone knew what really happened to Jasmine, the truth would be hidden somewhere in this penthouse, buried among designer suits and expensive art. Welcome to the channel, beautiful souls. If you're already hooked by Vanita's dangerous game of revenge and forbidden attraction, hit that subscribe button now. This dark romance journey is just beginning, and trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Drop a like if stories of fierce love and deadly secrets captivate you. As Vanita knelt to gather the razor-sharp fragments, she felt eyes on her. Not Nari's calculating gaze, but something else, heavier, more dangerous, burning into her back like a brand. She looked up. Lee Junwoo sat near the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the black expanse of Lake Michigan, his tailored black suit fitting his powerful frame with precision, his neck tattoos visible above his collar in deliberate defiance of convention. He was watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch, his expression unreadable, his dark eyes studying her like she was a puzzle he hadn't decided whether to solve or destroy. For 3 seconds that felt like 3 years, their eyes locked. Something electric and forbidden passed between them: recognition, curiosity, danger. She saw something flicker in his expression that shocked her. Not lust, but interest. As if he could see past the uniform, past the subservient posture, to who she really was underneath. Nari noticed. Her painted smile turned razor-sharp, predatory. "You," Nari called, her heels clicking across the marble like gunshots. "Come here." Vanita stood slowly, glass fragments still cupped in her bleeding hands. She'd spent her whole life in rooms like this, commanding them, being the daughter everyone wanted to befriend or fear. Now she was the help, invisible except when someone needed a target, and the irony was so bitter she could taste it like copper on her tongue. But as she walked toward Nari, passing close enough to Junho's position to smell his cologne, expensive, subtle, dangerous, she caught something in his eyes that changed everything. Recognition. Not of her face, though she suspected he knew exactly who she was. Recognition of something deeper. Someone who'd fallen from grace just like he had, someone who understood what it meant to be trapped in a world you couldn't escape. And in the reflection of the window behind him, Vanita saw Nari's expression when she thought no one was looking. Not imperious or cruel or even angry. Calculating. Predatory. The look of a hunter who'd already positioned every piece on the board and was simply waiting for the right moment to strike. The look of someone planning a murder. Vanita's blood ran cold. Whatever game was being played in this penthouse, it was bigger and deadlier than she'd imagined when she'd walked through the service entrance this morning. And she'd just made herself a piece on the board. The question was, would she be a pawn or a queen? Nari's perfectly manicured hand closed around Vanita's wrist with surprising strength, her grip tight enough to bruise, her immaculate red nails digging into skin like claws. "Do you know what happens to girls who forget their place in my house?" Nari asked, her voice loud enough for every guest to hear, intimate enough to feel like a secret. The entire ballroom went silent. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the string quartet stopped playing. Vanita met her eyes. A mistake, she realized immediately, but her pride wouldn't let her look away. Nari's eyes were beautiful and dead like a doll's eyes, like something that had learned to mimic humanity without ever feeling it. "No, ma'am," Vanita said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing up her throat. "They disappear." Nari's smile widened, showing perfect white teeth. She released Vanita's wrist and gestured to the shattered glass glittering across the marble like deadly diamonds. "Clean this mess. Then report to the kitchen. You're being reassigned." She leaned closer, her breath hot against Vanita's ear, her next words a whisper that turned Vanita's blood to ice. "I know who you are, little Douglas. Did you really think you could hide here?" Vanita's heart stopped. Nari pulled back with that razor-sharp smile still in place, then turned to her guests as if nothing had happened, her laughter light and musical as she accepted a fresh glass of champagne from a trembling server. Vanita's hands shook as she finished collecting the glass fragments, her mind racing through possibilities like a trapped animal looking for escape routes. Nari knew her identity, which meant this job had never been anonymous, which meant someone had set her up from the beginning. But who? And why? She retreated to the service areas, her bloodied hands leaving faint prints on the stainless steel door as she pushed through to the industrial kitchen. The heat hit her first, then the noise, staff moving in orchestrated chaos, preparing course after course for Chicago's criminal elite upstairs. "First night and you've already caught her attention." The voice was warm, concerned, speaking in accented English. Miguel Santos, head of security, leaned against the walk-in freezer, his scarred face kind despite the dangerous edge to his presence. He'd been in Junecio's organization for 15 years, loyal as a blade. "That's not a good thing, Chica." "She knows who I am," Vanita whispered, washing blood from her palms in the industrial sink, watching pink water spiral down the drain like her carefully constructed plan. Miguel's expression darkened. "Then you're already dead." "Nari doesn't make threats, she makes promises. If she's talking to you, she's just deciding when and how." He handed her a clean towel, his movements careful, almost fatherly. "You want to know about her? Fine. Listen close because I'm only saying this once." He told her in fragments, pieces of a nightmare puzzle. Nari had been orphaned in Seoul at 12, raised in the streets, climbed through Chicago's Korean underworld using blackmail and strategic seduction like weapons sharper than any knife. She'd eliminated at least 4 women who'd gotten close to Junso. Accidents, overdoses, disappearances that were never quite solved. She wasn't just cruel. She was methodical, patient, a chess player who thought 20 moves ahead while her opponents were still learning the rules. "Why does he keep her?" Vanita asked, the question escaping before she could stop it. Miguel's eyes held something like pity. "Because he doesn't know the extent of it. Or maybe he does and he's trapped too. In this world, the people closest to you are the most dangerous." Vanita nodded slowly, understanding crystallizing like ice in her veins. She'd walked into something far more complex than simple revenge, far more dangerous than a mafia household. She'd walked into a war that had been raging long before she arrived. "Miss Douglas." A young security officer appeared in the doorway, his face professionally blank. "Mr. Lee requests his evening drink. You're to bring it to his private quarters immediately." Miguel's expression said everything. This wasn't normal protocol. Nari always handled Junecio's nightcap. This was a test, a move in a game Vanita was only beginning to understand. She followed the officer through service corridors and private elevators, each level more exclusive than the last, until they reached the penthouse's inner sanctum. Junecio's private quarters occupied the entire west wing, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the dark expanse of Lake Michigan, minimalist furniture in black and chrome, art that was probably worth more than her father's entire legitimate business portfolio. Juno sat at his desk, his suit jacket discarded, his white shirt rolled to the elbows revealing intricate tattoos that crawled up his forearms like smoke and shadow. He was reviewing documents with the same intensity he'd watched her earlier, his focus absolute. He didn't look up as she entered. "Do you know what I do to spies, Miss Douglas?" His voice was quiet, controlled, more terrifying than Nari's theatrical cruelty. Vanita's breath caught. She set the crystal tumbler of whiskey on his desk with steady hands, refusing to show fear even as adrenaline flooded her system. "I'm not a spy." "No." He finally looked up, and the full weight of his attention was like standing in front of an oncoming train. His dark eyes were intelligent, calculating, missing nothing. Thomas Douglas's youngest daughter. Disowned 3 months ago for exposing her father's money laundering operation. Jasmine Douglas's older sister. He tilted his head slightly. You took a job in my household the week after your exile. That's either espionage or stupidity. I'm here because my sister died, Vanita said, gambling everything on honesty because lies would only get her killed faster. And I think someone in this building knows why. Something flickered in Junisio's expression. Recognition, maybe respect. Jasmine Douglas. 20 years old. Overdose in a River North hotel room 6 months ago. Police ruled it accidental. It wasn't an overdose. Vanita's voice cracked on the words, grief and rage mixing into something combustible. Jasmine didn't use drugs. She was investigating something and someone killed her for it. Prove it. The challenge hung between them, electric and dangerous. They stared at each other across the desk and Vanita saw something unexpected in his eyes. Doubt. Not about her but about his own life, his own choices, the empire he'd built on blood and secrets. I will, she said. Juno leaned back in his chair, a ghost of something that might have been a smile touching his lips. You have courage, I'll give you that. Stupid courage, but courage nonetheless. He picked up the whiskey, took a slow sip, his eyes never leaving hers. Here's the deal, Miss Douglas. I won't expose you to Nari. You don't cause problems in my organization. We both continue our investigations separately. Why would you help me? I'm not helping you. I'm containing a potential threat while determining if you're useful or dangerous. He set down the glass and when he spoke again his voice was softer, almost gentle. But if you're right about your sister, if someone in this building killed her, then we have a mutual interest in the truth. My fiancée collects secrets the way some people collect art. If she knows who you are, she's already 10 moves ahead of both of us. Vanita nodded, understanding the warning beneath the words. As she turned to leave, Juno's voice stopped her. Miss Douglas. She looked back. Be careful. The most dangerous predators are the ones you don't see coming. She left his quarters with her heart pounding, her mind spinning with possibilities and dangers. The hallway seemed longer on the way back, shadows deeper, every sound amplified. When she finally reached her tiny room in the staff quarters, she knew something was wrong before she even opened the door. The lock was intact but the air felt different, disturbed, violated. She pushed the door open slowly. Her room had been ransacked. Drawers pulled out, mattress lifted, her few possessions scattered across the floor like garbage. But it wasn't random destruction. It was methodical, surgical, a message more than a search. On her pillow, pristine white against the chaos, lay a photograph. Vanita's hands trembled as she picked it up. Jasmine's face stared back at her, beautiful even in death, her brown skin ashen, her natural hair spread across a hotel pillow, her eyes closed as if sleeping. But the angle was wrong, too close, too intimate. This wasn't a police photo or a morgue photo. This was taken by whoever killed her. Before anyone else arrived. While her body was still warm. Vanita's vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall. She flipped the photograph over with shaking fingers. On the back, in elegant calligraphy that looked like art, for words, "Welcome home, sister." The handwriting was unmistakable. She'd seen it on the guest list tonight, on place cards at dinner, on the wedding invitations being prepared for next month's ceremony. Nari's handwriting. Vanita sank onto her ransacked bed, the photograph clutched in her hands, and finally understood the depth of the trap she'd walked into. Nari hadn't just known she was coming. She'd been expecting her. Waiting for her. This whole thing. The job posting, the easy hiring process, the placement in Junisio's household, had been orchestrated from the beginning. She was exactly where Nari wanted her to be. And somewhere in this penthouse, the woman who'd killed Jasmine was probably watching, waiting, savoring Vanita's fear like expensive wine. The only question now was whether Vanita would run or fight. And as she looked at her sister's face in that horrible photograph, at the evidence of murder held in her hands, she knew there was only one choice. She'd come for answers. She'd stay for revenge. Even if it killed her. Vanita couldn't sleep. At 3 a.m. she stared at Jasmine's photograph until rage replaced fear, until she remembered who she'd been before her father broke her. The security pass she'd stolen during the party chaos felt heavy as a weapon in her palm. Junisio's private office occupied the penthouse's top floor. The secondary entrance, used by cleaning staff, only required a key card. Miguel had mentioned it casually, almost too casually. Maybe he'd wanted her to find this. Maybe this was another trap. Either way, Venita was done being careful. The office was sleek and powerful, walls lined with filing cabinets documenting empires built on blood and secrets. She moved like a ghost toward the painting Miguel had described, Seoul's skyline in stark black and white. Behind it, a wall safe with a digital keypad. Junesio's sister's birthday. April 15, 1998. The safe clicked open. Inside, blackmail files, photographs of politicians in compromising positions, financial documents proving money laundering. Nari's insurance policy. Her power made tangible. And then, photographs of dead women. 5 of them, all beautiful, all looking eerily similar. All Junetha's type. Car accidents. Overdoses. Disappearances. Each death ruled accidental or unsolved. Venita's hands shook as she found the last file. Jasmine Douglas. Surveillance photos spilled out. Jasmine with Nari at a cafe, leaving Nari's car, arguing with someone out of frame. The dates, 3 weeks before her death. Juneso's handwriting in the margins. Why would Nari meet with Douglas's daughter? What was Jasmine investigating? He'd known. He'd suspected. He'd done nothing. Breaking and entering. The lights blazed on. That's a capital offense in this house. Nari stood in the doorway, impeccable even at 3 a.m., holding a gun with casual familiarity. She wore silk pajamas that probably cost more than Venita's former wardrobe, her hair perfect, her smile predatory. Your sister was clever, Nari said, circling Venita like a shark. She figured out your father and Junesio were partners, that their legitimate businesses were fronts. She was going to expose both empires in one article. I couldn't allow that. You killed her. I arranged her death. There's a difference. I didn't pull the trigger or inject the drugs. I simply orchestrated circumstances. Nari's smile widened. And now you've walked right into my trap. When Junio dies, all evidence will point to you, the vengeful daughter seeking revenge for daddy's business partnership gone wrong. Junesio will die believing you betrayed him, just like everyone you've ever loved. The door opened. Junoo stood there, fully dressed despite the hour, his expression unreadable. The tension between the 3 of them was suffocating. What's happening? His voice was dangerously quiet. Nari's mask never slipped. I caught your little maid stealing. She handed him Jasmine's file. She's Thomas Douglas's daughter. She's been spying on you. Junseo looked at Venita, then the file, then back. His face revealed nothing. Get out. You're fired. Security materialized from the shadows, dragging Venita away. But as they pulled her through the door, she saw Juno open the file fully, saw his expression change as he found something Nari hadn't noticed, and his eyes met Venita's with sudden, terrible understanding. Instead of being thrown out, Venita was taken to Junesio's private gym. He was there, shirtless, tattoos covering his torso like armor, hitting a punching bag with controlled violence that spoke of barely contained rage. You have 10 seconds to convince me not to kill you, he said without stopping. Venita gambled everything. Nari killed your first fiancé too. And I can prove it. His fist stopped mid-strike. Juno turned to face her, and for the first time she saw real emotion in his eyes. Rage, pain, and something that looked like hope. Tell me everything. And if you're lying, you'll wish Nari had killed you instead. Behind them, unseen, a security camera's red light blinked steadily. In her bedroom, Nari watched the feed, her smile sharp as broken glass, already planning her next move. Junesio's private gym became a war room as dawn broke over Chicago, painting Lake Michigan in shades of blood and gold. They worked in tense silence, spreading files across the floor like pieces of a nightmare puzzle, connecting deaths and disappearances that spanned 5 years. Minji, Juno said quietly, holding a photograph of a beautiful Korean woman with kind eyes. My first fiancé. Car accident 3 years ago. Brake lines cut, but the investigation was inconclusive. His jaw tightened. She discovered Nari embezzling from my operations. She was going to tell me that night. Venita looked at the other files. 4 more women, all dead or missing, all connected to Junseo. She's been doing this from the beginning. No. She's been doing this since before the beginning. Juneseo's voice was hollow. I'm the son of a Korean crime family. I came to Chicago to build something independent of my father's shadow. I met Nari when she was nobody, a bartender in Chinatown with ambition in her eyes. I thought I was creating a partner. He laughed bitterly. I was creating a monster. The emotional walls between them cracked like ice under pressure. Vanita saw past the dangerous mafia boss to the man underneath. Someone who'd been manipulated and betrayed by the person he trusted most. I knew something was wrong, Juno admitted, not meeting her eyes. I've known for years. But I couldn't prove it, and in this world accusations without proof are suicide. Vanita understood completely. That's what happened when I accused my father. I had evidence but not enough. He destroyed me before I could destroy him. We're quite the pair. Juno's smile was sharp and sad. Two people too proud to admit when they've been outmaneuvered. They formed a plan as the city woke around them. Vanita would stay fired but secretly employed, giving her freedom to investigate without Nari's scrutiny. Juno would pretend nothing had changed, keeping Nari convinced she was still in control. She'll suspect, Vanita warned. Let her. Suspicion without proof is just paranoia. As they planned, physical proximity became unavoidable. They leaned over the same documents, their shoulders touching. Their hands brushed, reaching for the same file, and neither pulled away immediately. Eye contact lingered too long, charged with something dangerous and electric. Juno finally asked the question Vanita had been dreading. Why should I trust you? You lied about who you were from the moment you walked through my door. Because we both want the same thing, the truth about Nari. And because neither of us has anyone else. Vanita's voice cracked on the last word, vulnerability she couldn't hide. Everyone I loved either betrayed me or died. You're the only person in this city who understands what that feels like. It was the honesty that broke something in him. Juno moved faster than thought, his hand cupping her face, his lips crashing against hers with sudden, fierce intensity. The kiss was almost angry, desperate and raw. Two people who'd been betrayed by everyone they'd ever trusted finding something real in each other. Vanita kissed back with equal intensity, her hands gripping his shoulders, tasting coffee and danger and something that felt terrifyingly like hope. Then Juno pulled away, breathing hard. This is a mistake. Probably, Vanita agreed, her lips still burning. They didn't touch again, but the line had been crossed. The air between them hummed with unspoken promises and impossible possibilities. Juneseo's phone shattered the moment, ringing with Nari's custom tone. He answered, his expression smoothing into emotionless control. Yes. Nari's voice was sweet as poisoned honey, loud enough for Vanita to hear. Darling, I've invited guests for breakfast. Including Miss Douglas's father. I thought it was time for a family reunion. A pause, pregnant with threat. Don't keep us waiting. The call ended. Juneseo and Vanita stared at each other, the warmth between them flash freezing into tactical assessment. It's a trap, Vanita said. Everything with Nari is a trap. The question is what kind. They had no choice but to walk into it. Meanwhile, in the security office, Miguel watched the gym footage with an expression that might have been regret. He pulled out a burner phone, dialed a number he'd memorized years ago. She's made contact with Juno, Miguel said quietly. Just like you predicted. The voice on the other end was cold, familiar, hateful. Thomas Douglas. Good. Everything is going according to plan. Nari will handle the rest. And the girl. My daughter made her choice when she betrayed me. Whatever happens to her now, she brought on herself. Miguel ended the call, staring at the screen where Vanita and Junseo prepared for war, and wondered if redemption was possible for any of them. The breakfast room was flooded with morning light that made everything look deceptively innocent. Nari sat at the head of the table in a white dress that made her look like a bride or a ghost, smiling as Vanita and Juno entered. Thomas Douglas sat to her right, looking older than Vanita remembered, his expensive suit unable to hide the corruption eating him from inside. Next to him, Marcus Webb, her father's enforcer, a man Vanita had seen break bones with casual efficiency. And across from them, a stranger. Korean, middle-aged, watching Vanita with the cold assessment of someone evaluating merchandise. Ah, there you are, Nari said brightly. Shall we discuss business? I believe we all have investments in Miss Douglas's future. The stranger smiled, showing gold teeth. She'll do. The buyers in Seoul prefer American girls with her features. Dark skin, natural hair, educated enough to be interesting but desperate enough to be controllable. Vanita's blood turned to ice as understanding hit like a physical blow. Her father wasn't just disowning her. He was selling her to human traffickers. And Nari was brokering the deal like it was a corporate merger. Junwoo's hand found hers under the table, his grip tight enough to hurt, the only thing keeping her from lunging across the table at her father's throat. Thomas Douglas finally met his daughter's eyes, his expression empty. You should have stayed quiet, Vanita. Now you'll learn what happens to daughters who forget their place. The breakfast table became a battlefield dressed in fine china and crystal. Thomas Douglas laid out the terms with the cold efficiency of a man selling livestock, not his daughter. Vanita will be escorted to Seoul within the week to marry Mr. Park's business associate, he said, gesturing to the trafficker with gold teeth. This ensures my partnership with Korean networks. In exchange, Junwoo, you get expanded territory in the Midwest. Nari receives her broker's percentage. Everyone wins. Everyone except Vanita, who felt her world collapsing. Junwoo sat perfectly still, his face an emotionless mask, his hand gripping Vanita's under the table. The silence stretched until Vanita thought she might scream. Finally, Junwoo spoke. No. The word dropped like a bomb. Excuse me. Thomas Douglas's face hardened. Vanita Douglas is under my protection. She stays in Chicago. Junwoo's voice was quiet, absolute. You're choosing a maid over a $50 million deal? I'm choosing my organization's integrity. We don't traffic women. We never have. Junwoo stood, buttoning his suit jacket with deliberate calm. Gentlemen, this meeting is over. Mr. Douglas, you are no longer welcome in my home. Nari's eyes flashed dangerously, but her smile held. Darling, perhaps we should discuss this privately. There's nothing to discuss. Park looked at Nari coldly. You said you controlled him. Nari's smile cracked. I do. Chaos erupted. Park pulled a gun, aiming at Junwoo. Vanita moved on instinct, years of self-defense training taking over, grabbing the butter knife and throwing it with precision. The blade hit Park's wrist. His gun discharged into the ceiling, plaster and crystal raining down. Junwoo's security flooded in, weapons drawn. In the chaos, Vanita locked eyes with her father. For one heartbeat, she saw regret flicker across his face. Then Thomas Douglas turned and walked away, his final betrayal absolute. When the smoke cleared, Park and Thomas were gone. Nari remained seated, sipping champagne as if armed standoffs were merely tedious interruptions. Junwoo dismissed everyone until only 3 remained in the destroyed breakfast room. The power dynamic had shifted and everyone felt it. You set this up, Junwoo said to Nari. You invited Douglas knowing what he'd propose. I was testing your commitment, darling. To what? You. To the empire we've built. Junwoo looked at Vanita and took her hand in front of Nari. A deliberate public declaration. My commitment is to doing things right. Not just profitable. Nari's composure shattered for 1 second before the mask returned. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her smile became terrifying. How sweet. You're choosing the maid over me. She showed him her phone. But darling, you seem to have forgotten something important. The screen showed a live video feed. Junwoo's sister Minho in Seoul, walking to her car followed by men with guns. The timestamp read live. Choose, Nari said simply. Your maid or your sister. You have 1 hour before my friends in Seoul lose their patience. Junwoo's face went white. He reached for his phone to call his Seoul contacts, fingers moving with desperate speed. Nari's laugh was soft, deadly. Oh, and Junwoo? Your entire Seoul operation? They work for me now. They have for 2 years. You've been king of an empire that was already mine. The phone slipped from Junwoo's hand, clattering against the floor. Vanita watched his world collapse in real time, watched him realize the depth of Nari's betrayal, that everything he'd built, everyone he'd trusted had been compromised years ago. Nari stood, smoothing her white dress. 1 hour, darling. Tick-tock. She walked out, her heels clicking against marble like a countdown to execution. Junwoo stood frozen, and Vanita saw something she'd never expected to see in him. Complete, paralyzing fear. She's going to kill Mincio, he whispered. Not if we move first. Vanita said, her mind already racing through possibilities. Nari made a mistake. She told us her plan. Juno looked at her, hope and desperation warring in his eyes. How do we fight someone who owns everything? We burn it all down. Together. If you're still here heart racing, dying to know if Vanita and Junicio survive this deadly game, drop a comment letting me know you're hooked. Subscribe if you're ready to see this explosive love story through to the end. Where are you watching from? Let me know below. Junicio's penthouse command center looked like a war zone. He was on his 5th call to Seoul, each contact either unreachable or suddenly hostile. Nari had been systematic. She'd flipped his entire Korean operation, turned his own people into weapons pointed at his throat. Vanita watched him unravel and understood Nari's real strategy. This wasn't just murder. It was psychological destruction, making Junicio watch everything collapse before she killed him. Stop calling them, Vanita said sharply. You're giving her intelligence on who you still trust. Pai's sister. Is leverage not a target? Nari needs her alive to control you. Vanita forced him to meet her eyes. If she wanted Minso dead, she'd already be dead. Juno looked at her with desperate hope. How do I get her back? We don't play Nari's game. We change the rules. Vanita revealed her network, the advantage Nari hadn't anticipated. Despite being disowned, she still had contacts in Chicago's elite. Former classmates, family friends who owed favors, people who valued loyalty over profit. She made calls. Pulled strings her father had taught her to pull. Within 2 hours they had intelligence. Nari's blackmail files were in Chinatown. Her sole operation was loyal to money, not her, they could be bought back. Thomas Douglas regretted the breakfast disaster, realizing Nari had manipulated him. Most importantly, Minyo wasn't in Seoul. She was in Chicago, held in a Pilsen safe house. As they planned, Vanita and Junicio worked in tandem, her strategy and his operational experience creating something neither could achieve alone. The attraction intensified, but now it was about trust, not just desire. Late that night, Jung asked quietly, "Why are you helping me?" "I'm everything you hate." "Because Nari killed my sister." "And because..." Vanita hesitated, then committed to honesty. "Because I see who you could be. Not who you've been." "What if that's not enough?" "Then we burn together." He kissed her, slower this time, deeper. A promise instead of passion. When they broke apart, he whispered, "If we survive this, I'm leaving this world. All of it. I'm holding you to that." Miguel burst in. "Nari's hosting a reconciliation dinner tonight. Mandatory attendance. She's making it public." "It's a trap," Junhyo said. "It's an opportunity," Vanita countered. "She'll expect you broken. You attend the dinner. I rescue Minicio and steal her files." The Pilsen raid was brutal. Nari's guards were professional, expecting trouble. Vanita, Miguel and 2 loyal officers breached the safe house in controlled violence. The fight was close quarters and desperate. Vanita took a knife wound to her side but kept moving, adrenaline drowning the pain. They found Minyo chained in a basement room, early 20s, terrified but alive. When she saw her brother's people, she broke down sobbing. But as they extracted her, Nari's lieutenant appeared. Charlotte Kim, Nari's childhood friend and true believer. "He'll never leave her," Charlotte taunted. "She owns him." "Not anymore." Their fight was vicious. 2 women fighting for completely different futures. Vanita won barely, using a chain and pipe to overcome Charlotte's training, desperation making her dangerous. As they escaped, Minyo safe in Miguel's arms, Vanita's phone rang. Nari's voice was ice. "You really shouldn't have done that, Vanita. Now I have to accelerate the timeline." At the dinner, Junio's wine glass shattered as a red laser dot appeared on his chest. Vanita heard gunfire through the phone. Junicio's line went dead. She stood bleeding, holding his sister blocks from the penthouse, and the man she was falling for might already be dead. Miguel grabbed her arm. "We have to move. Now." But Vanita was already running toward the sound of gunfire, toward Juno, toward whatever hell Nari had unleashed, because if he was dying she wouldn't let him die alone. Vanita ran 3 blocks before Miniso's voice stopped her cold. "What are you doing?" Junu's sister grabbed her arm, forcing Vanita to meet her eyes that looked exactly like her brother's, dark and fierce and uncompromising. "You can't save him by dying with him." I can't let him die alone. Minho pulled the bulletproof vest from Miguel's bag, shoving it at Venita with bloodied hands. Then don't die. Save my brother. He'd never forgive himself if you died for him. The penthouse was a fortress locked down tight, Nari's people controlling every entrance. Venita used service corridors her privilege had taught her to recognize. Buildings like this were designed with invisible pathways for invisible people. She moved through shadows and maintenance tunnels, her wound screaming with each step, adrenaline the only thing keeping her conscious. 3 guards went down quietly. Venita used techniques she'd learned in self-defense classes she'd never thought she'd need, combined with the desperate strength of someone who'd already lost everything. She stole a uniform, smeared blood from her mouth to look like she'd been in the fight, and bluffed her way to the penthouse level with a story about reinforcements needed upstairs. The dinner party was frozen like a photograph of hell. Chicago's crime families sat rigid with fear, trapped witnesses to their own obsolescence. Nari stood at the head of the table in that perfect white dress now spattered with blood, gun steady in her hand, looking like a bride at the altar of violence. Juno knelt nearby, bleeding from his shoulder, held at gunpoint by 2 of his own former security. When his eyes found Venita, the relief and terror that crossed his face nearly broke her. "Ah, Venita," Nari said pleasantly as if greeting a late guest. "I was wondering when you'd arrive. You really are predictable, that's going to get you killed." Venita raised her stolen gun, but Nari didn't flinch. "You won't shoot. You're not like me. Maybe that's my advantage." Nari laughed, the sound crystalline and mad. "You want to know the truth? This was never about Junisio's money or his empire. It was about becoming something more than an orphan from Seoul. In this world, women like us have to be 3 times as ruthless to get half the respect. I've built an empire from nothing, and now I'm taking everything." Her smile widened. "When I kill you both and frame it as a murder-suicide, the disgraced maid killing her employer, I inherit as the grieving fiancé. Every family here will owe me condolences and favors." "You're insane," Venita breathed. "I'm efficient." Across the room, Junyo met Venita's eyes. The communication was silent but absolute. "I love you. I'm sorry. Save yourself." She shook her head slightly, not happening. Venita played her last card with steady hands. "Before you pull that trigger, Nari, you should know, Minasio is safe. And she's live-streaming this entire conversation to every news outlet in Chicago." Nari's composure cracked like fine porcelain. "Bluffing. Am I?" Venita pulled out her phone. On screen, Minasio surrounded by cameras at a police station broadcasting everything. The stream counter read 50,000 viewers and climbing. The guests' phones erupted in synchronized buzzing. They were watching themselves become tomorrow's headlines. Nari stared at the screen, watching her perfect plan disintegrate in real time. Then she smiled, that terrifying, genuine smile that meant someone was about to die. "If I can't have this empire, no one will." She fired at Junicio. Venita moved on instinct, throwing herself between them. The bullet slammed into her chest, the vest absorbing impact that still felt like being hit by a car. She went down hard, gasping, vision blurring. Chaos erupted. Guests scattered like frightened birds. Juno surged to his feet, his injury less severe than he'd pretended, and broke free with savage efficiency, taking down 1 guard with brutal force. Miguel and loyal security burst through multiple entrances, weapons drawn. But Nari fought like someone with nothing left to lose. She shot 2 of Junisio's people with cold precision, wounded Miguel and cornered Venita in the chaos, pressing her gun to Venita's temple with shaking hands. "You took everything from me," Nari hissed, her mask finally shattered, revealing the damaged girl underneath the monster. "No," Venita said, meeting her eyes without fear. "You did this to yourself." Nari's gun got knocked away in the struggle. They fought hand-to-hand across the destroyed penthouse, through expensive art and over designer furniture, all pretense of elegance stripped away. Nari was trained and desperate. Venita was wounded and exhausted but fighting for something Nari had never understood. Love instead of power. Juno moved to intervene, but Venita shouted through bloodied lips, "No. This is mine." She needed this, to prove she wasn't helpless, wasn't the weak princess her father had tried to break. Venita got Nari pinned finally, her own gun pressed against Nari's temple, both of them gasping and bleeding on the marble floor. Nari looked up at her with something that might have been respect or might have been madness. Do it, Nari whispered. Become like me. Vanita's finger trembled on the trigger. One pull and Jasmine would be avenged. One pull and the monster would be dead. But Juneso's voice cut through the rage. Vanita. Don't. She's not worth losing yourself. Police sirens wailed closer, Minasa's broadcast having brought an army. Vanita looked at Nari, this woman who'd killed her sister, who'd chosen to become a monster and made her choice. She lowered the gun. No, Vanita said. I'm nothing like you. Nari laughed, bitter and broken. Then you've already lost. The police flooded in seconds later, but as they dragged Nari away, her eyes locked on Vanita with a promise. This isn't over. The Bridgeport safe house smelled like stale coffee and desperation. 2 days since Nari's arrest, and Vanita couldn't shake the feeling they'd won a battle but lost the war. Juno stood at the window, watching the street with the vigilance of someone who knew predators were circling. Her lawyers are already working bail, Miguel reported, his arm in a sling from the penthouse fight. She'll be out in 72 hours. Ginesio's jaw tightened. Then we have 72 hours to end this. How? Vanita demanded. Nari has leverage on half of Chicago's justice system. My father's liquidating assets to disappear. We're witnesses to crimes no one wants prosecuted. We burn it all down. Juno turned from the window, his eyes holding that dangerous intensity she'd come to recognize as determination, not cruelty. My empire, your father's business, Nari's network. Everything. That's suicide. They're already trying to kill us. At least this way we control the narrative. They formed an alliance with Detective Chin, a cop who'd been fighting Chicago's corruption for decades. States evidence in exchange for protection and immunity. But Nari's blackmail files were encrypted. Without the password, half her network stayed protected. That night, in the suffocating intimacy of the safe house, Vanita and Juno faced the future honestly for the first time. He traced the healing wound on her side with gentle fingers, his touch reverent instead of hungry. I want out, he admitted. Of all of it. I don't know how to be anything but this, but I want to try. Then we'll figure it out together. They made love slowly, tenderly, two people choosing each other despite the impossibility of survival. Afterward, holding each other in the darkness, Vanita felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Minu shattered it with 3 words. I cracked it. Junisio's sister sat surrounded by laptops, her genius finally unleashed on Nari's encryption. I have everything. Every file, every video, every document. The files revealed horrors Vanita had never imagined. Senators, judges, police chiefs, all compromised. And at the center, Thomas Douglas hadn't just laundered money. He'd facilitated human trafficking for years, selling girls who looked like his own daughters to foreign networks. Vanita's childhood, the mansion, the private schools, the privilege had been built on suffering. We release everything, she said, her voice hollow. Total transparency. Let Chicago burn if it needs to. Juno stared at her, understanding she was willing to sacrifice her family name for justice. Are you sure? My father sold me to traffickers. I'm sure. They uploaded the files to every major news outlet simultaneously. Thomas Douglas's response was immediate and military precise. Mercenaries hit the safe house within the hour. Someone had leaked their location. Explosions rocked the building. Miguel and Junisio's people mounted a desperate defense as Vanita, Junhyo, and Minicio escaped through the basement into Chicago's Prohibition-era tunnel system. The tunnels were suffocating darkness and claustrophobia. Vanita led from memory, her rebellious teenage urban exploration finally useful. Behind them, Douglas's team pursued with tactical precision. Juno took a bullet protecting Minicio, going down hard. Vanita became the strong one, half carrying him through the darkness, making impossible decisions to keep them alive. They emerged in Chinatown, taking shelter in the building where Nari's blackmail operation had started, bitter irony not lost on any of them. As they barricaded themselves in, Vanita's phone rang. Her mother's name glowed on the screen. Vanita, baby, please, your father's coming to kill you. But I'm with the FBI. I've been cooperating for months. Tell me where you are. Vanita looked at Juno, bleeding and exhausted. Trust or die. Outside vehicles arrived. Multiple vehicles. Mom, where are you right now? At the FBI field office. I can send agents. Through the cracked window, Vanita saw her mother step from one of the vehicles. With Thomas Douglas. Not FBI. She chose him, Vanita whispered, her world crumbling. My mother chose him over me. Surrounded in the Chinatown building, bleeding and exhausted, they faced extinction. Thomas Douglas's mercenaries circled like wolves. Victoria Douglas's betrayal burned worse than any bullet wound. And Nari, freshly bailed out through bribes and blackmail, was coordinating their execution remotely. Juno made a call he'd sworn never to make. His father and Seoul. Chairman Lee. 5 years of silence between them, broken by desperation. Come home, his father said after hearing everything. Leave America. Leave this girl. Return to the family. Juno looked at Vanita, wounded and defiant, and made his choice. I'd rather die here than live your way. The silence stretched eternal. Then, you've finally become a man. Help is on the way. The cavalry arrived in force. Chairman Lee's entire Chicago network. Secret protection Juno never knew existed. Not to kill but to extract. A three-way battle erupted. Douglas's mercenaries versus Lee's soldiers versus Chicago PD. Detective Chin having tracked them through sheer determination. In the chaos, Nari appeared. She'd used the confusion to slip inside, done with proxies and elaborate plans. She wanted Vanita dead by her own hands, wanted to watch the light leave her eyes personally. The rooftop became their arena. Chicago's skyline glittered behind them, indifferent to the violence playing out above its streets. Nari and Vanita circled each other, both armed, both wounded, both fighting for completely different futures. You cost me everything, Nari hissed. You never had anything real to begin with. They fought with the desperation of people who understood this was the end. But Vanita fought differently now, not from rage but from love. Love for Junizio, for the future they could build, for the person she was choosing to become. Juno burst onto the rooftop, gun raised, clear shot at Nari's head. His finger tensed on the trigger. No. Vanita shouted. Don't become that person. Not for me. The moment defined them both. Junzio lowered his gun, choosing humanity over vengeance. Nari lunged at Vanita in the distraction. They struggled at the roof's edge, grappling with desperate intensity. For one horrible moment, both teetered over the precipice. Junzio grabbed Vanita, yanking her back. Nari's momentum carried her over. She caught the edge, fingers white-knuckled, hanging above the alley below. Vanita reached down instinctively. Give me your hand. Nari looked up with pure, crystalline hatred. I'd rather die. She let go. The rooftop fell silent except for sirens and helicopter rotors. Below, arrests unfolded. Thomas Douglas in handcuffs, mercenaries surrendering, corrupt officials identified from Nari's files being detained. Juno held Vanita as she shook. I tried to save her, she whispered. After everything, I tried to save her. What does that make me? Human, he said, kissing her forehead. It makes you human. Weeks later, trials dominated headlines. Thomas Douglas faced decades for trafficking and conspiracy to murder. Victoria Douglas had turned state's evidence. Her call had been genuine, Thomas forcing her presence, using the opportunity to lead FBI to their location. Mother and daughter began tentative reconciliation. Junizio entered a plea deal. Testify against his entire organization for reduced sentence. 3 years minimum security, total asset forfeiture. I'll wait, Vanita told him the day before he reported. You shouldn't have to. I'm not waiting for you to finish a sentence. I'm waiting for us to start our real life. On the day Junizio reported to prison, a package arrived. No return address. Inside, a burner phone with one video message. Nari's face filled the screen, scarred from the fall but very much alive. Did you really think a fall would kill me? I've survived worse. Enjoy your victory, Vanita. It's temporary. I'm patient. And one day when you've forgotten to look over your shoulder, when you're comfortable with your reformed criminal and your little family, I'll be there. This isn't over. It's never over. The video ended. Vanita showed Junizio in the prison parking lot, both of them facing the truth. The fight wasn't finished. 3 years, Junhyo said. In 3 years I'll be out. And we'll end this properly. Together, Vanita agreed. They kissed, a promise not goodbye. As Junho walked into the prison, Vanita drove away. In her rearview mirror, a black car followed at a distance. She smiled grimly. The game continued. But this time she wasn't the naive princess or the desperate maid. She was someone who'd survived, who'd fought, who'd chosen love without losing herself. At her new modest apartment, paid for by legitimate consulting work, Vanita set up security cameras and compiled files on Nari's international contacts. 3 years to prepare. 3 years until Junho returned. And then they'd go hunting. And there you have it. Vanita and Junho's story of survival, betrayal, and fierce love that conquered darkness. But Nari is still out there watching, waiting. Will she strike again? The story continues in my next video and you won't want to miss it. Smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a comment telling me. Do you think Vanita and Junho will survive Nari's next move? What country are you watching from? Your engagement means everything to me. See you in the next chapter of Passion and Danger.